Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. Today's story is about a man who has everything: wealth, power, and influence, but nothing he owns has ever truly made him feel alive. This is a story of how a simple misunderstanding at a cafe will change his life forever. His name is Liam Parker, and he's the CEO of one of the largest tech companies in the country. To the outside world, he's a man of confidence, wealth, and control. But beneath that polished exterior, he's lost in the chaos of his own success. His life is one of meetings, deals, and a never-ending stream of business. The things he once cared about, passion, connection, even love, have slipped away. For him, everything is a transaction. Until one fateful afternoon, when he sat down at the wrong table. It started as just another blind date. Liam had agreed to meet a potential match, a setup from his assistant. But the moment he walked into the bustling cafe, something felt different. He scanned the room for his date, but instead, his eyes landed on a woman sitting alone at a table in the back. She was looking down at her phone, unaware of the world around her. Without thinking, Liam walked over. He had planned to sit with his date, but somehow, his feet led him to her table instead. "Hi, you must be Kevin?" she asked with a nervous smile. She had a friendly face, but there was something off about the situation. Liam blinked, a bit startled. He was about to correct her, to explain the mistake, but for some reason, he didn't. Instead, he simply nodded. "Yes, I am. Nice to meet you," he replied, watching her settle into the conversation. For reasons he couldn't explain, he decided to play along. As the conversation unfolded, Liam realized this woman was different from anyone he had met in a long time. Her name was Emma, and she was a waitress. She spoke passionately about her dreams, how she wanted to open an art studio, how she found solace in sketching and painting. Liam listened intently, intrigued by her unpolished, yet honest nature. In a world filled with superficial exchanges and calculated moves, Emma was refreshing. She didn't know who he was, didn't know about his wealth or his position in society. To her, he was just a man, sitting across from her at a cafe, having a conversation. Liam found himself relaxing, laughing at her jokes, and sharing parts of himself he hadn't in years. For the first time in a long while, Liam felt like someone was seeing him for who he really was, not just for his name or his money. He could feel a connection forming, but before he could think more about it, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. His actual date had texted, saying she was waiting at another table. Realizing the mistake, Emma looked up at Liam, her face flushing with embarrassment. "You're not Kevin, are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam chuckled, shaking his head. "No, I'm not. I'm sorry about that. I should have told you sooner, but it was kind of nice, you know," he said, smiling softly. Emma stood up quickly, her face red with embarrassment. She grabbed her coat, ready to leave. "I'm so sorry," she said, almost running out of the cafe. Liam watched her go, a strange feeling stirring inside him. Something about their brief interaction had left a lasting impression on him. He hadn't expected to meet someone so genuine, so real. And he hadn't expected to feel so connected. What was it about her? Why did he care so much? As Emma hurried out of the cafe, her mind was racing. She couldn't believe the mistake she had made. She had just spent the last half hour talking to a man she thought was someone else. But for some reason, she couldn't shake the feeling that the conversation had been real, unlike the others she had been on. She replayed the moments in her mind, how he had listened to her, how he hadn't judged her for her ordinary life. She had never felt that way before with anyone, let alone someone she thought was just a random stranger. Shaking her head, she pushed the thought aside. It was silly, right? After all, he was probably just another rich guy with nothing real to offer. Little did she know, that simple mistake, the mix-up that seemed like nothing more than an awkward encounter, would change both of their lives forever. For Liam, it was the first real connection he had felt in a long time. And for Emma, it was the beginning of a journey that would lead her into a world she never thought she'd be a part of. But that's a story for later. The next morning, Emma found herself pacing her small apartment, her thoughts a whirlwind. She had barely slept the night before, her mind replaying the events at the cafe. How could she have made such a mistake? She had sat at the wrong table, had a whole conversation with a man who wasn't even her date. She couldn't stop thinking about him. Liam. He wasn't just another guy at a bar or cafe. He was different. There was something about him. But of course, she told herself, he was probably just another rich guy who had nothing better to do. Why was she even wasting time thinking about it? As Emma got ready for the day, she tried to shake off the nagging feeling in her chest. She had a shift at the diner to get to, and the last thing she needed was to be distracted by a man she had met by mistake. But she couldn't help it. She had promised herself she wouldn't get involved with anyone, especially not someone who probably had a life she could never even imagine. She didn't know why, but that moment with Liam had stayed with her. Meanwhile, Liam couldn't stop thinking about Emma either. It had been days since their brief encounter, and he had done his best to push the memory out of his mind. After all, she was just a waitress, someone he would never see again. But there was something about her that lingered in his thoughts. Her sincerity, the way she spoke so passionately about her dreams, her art. It was refreshing, a stark contrast to the polished, business-driven conversations he was used to. He realized, for the first time in years, he didn't want to just forget about her. He wanted to see her again. It was only a matter of time before he found a reason to reach out. He wasn't sure why he was doing this. He didn't even know if she'd remember him, but something told him he had to try. He scrolled through his contacts, searching for the right words to say. After a few minutes, he finally typed out a message. Hi, it's Liam. I hope you're doing well. I know we met under strange circumstances, but I was hoping we could meet again for coffee. I'd really like to continue our conversation. He hesitated before hitting send, unsure of what she would think. But before he could second-guess himself, he pressed the button. Emma's phone buzzed on the counter as she was preparing coffee for a customer. She picked it up. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw the message. It was from Liam. She quickly glanced around the diner, her pulse racing. She had no idea why he was texting her. Was he just being polite? Or did he actually want to see her again? She stared at the screen for a moment, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Should she respond? What would she even say? Hi, Liam. I didn't expect to hear from you. She typed back after a brief moment of hesitation. I didn't think you'd want to see me again after, the mix-up. She hit send and immediately regretted it. Was that too casual? Too forward? She cursed herself for not being more confident. But to her surprise, the response came quickly. I didn't think you'd want to see me either, Liam replied. But I've been thinking about our conversation, and I'd like to talk more. No pressure, just coffee. I'll be in the area this afternoon, if you're free. Emma smiled, reading the message again. There was something about his words, his sincerity, that made her heart skip a beat. Maybe he wasn't like all the other men she had met. Maybe he was genuine. Still, she tried not to get her hopes up. He was probably just looking for a casual chat, and she didn't want to overthink things. But as the clock ticked on and her shift was coming to an end, she couldn't help but feel a little excited. Maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be the end of their story. She glanced at her reflection in the diner's window, adjusting her hair and trying to smooth out the wrinkles in her uniform. She looked ordinary, but something told her this wasn't going to be an ordinary meeting. She replied to his message. Okay, coffee sounds good. I'll meet you at the same cafe. 3 p.m. She hit send and quickly rushed to get ready. When she stepped out the door, she couldn't help but wonder what this meeting would be like. Would it just be another awkward encounter? Or would it be the beginning of something more? Meanwhile, Liam was already at the cafe, waiting with a cup of coffee in hand. His heart raced a little as he glanced at the door, wondering if she would show up. He had no expectations, no plan. He just wanted to see her again, to talk to her, to find out if the connection he felt was real. As Emma walked into the cafe, her eyes immediately locked onto Liam's. He was sitting at a corner table, his eyes scanning the room. The moment he saw her, he smiled, a genuine smile that made her heart flutter. She walked over, unsure of what to say, but knowing that something had shifted between them. There was no going back now. As Emma walked over to Liam's table, her nerves started to bubble up again. She had thought this would be just another casual meeting, but now, sitting across from him, she felt the weight of the situation. He wasn't just any guy. He was Liam Parker, someone she hadn't realized was more than what he had let on. She tried to push that thought aside as she sat down, offering a nervous smile. Hi, Liam. It's good to see you again. she said, her voice sounding steadier than she felt. Liam looked up, his eyes lighting up with a smile that made her feel a little less anxious. "I'm glad you came," he said, taking a sip from his coffee. "I wasn't sure if you'd show up. I guess I owe you an apology for the other day. I never meant to cause any confusion. I didn't correct you when I should have." Emma waved a hand, dismissing his apology. "It's fine, really. Honestly, I didn't think I'd see you again either. But I'm glad you reached out," she replied, her smile softening. There was something reassuring about the way he spoke, the way he wasn't trying to be anyone he wasn't. And for the first time in a while, Emma found herself relaxing. In his presence, they sat there for a few moments, talking about their days, the weather, and small things that didn't seem so important, but still felt significant. Emma had always felt awkward in social situations, especially with men, but with Liam, the conversation flowed effortlessly. She found herself laughing at his jokes and telling him stories she wouldn't normally share. There was something about him that made her feel like she could be herself. And as she listened to him talk about his work, Emma realized she had no idea what he actually did. He had mentioned being in tech at the cafe, but it was still so vague. "So tech, what exactly do you do?" Emma asked, trying to sound casual, though her curiosity was piqued. Liam hesitated for a moment, as if weighing how much to reveal. "I work for a tech company," he said, keeping it simple. "I'm kind of in charge of a lot of things, projects, innovations. That's about it. I guess it sounds more exciting than it actually is." Emma raised an eyebrow. "You don't sound very excited about it." He chuckled, the sound warm and genuine. "It's not that. I guess I'm just used to it by now. It's all numbers and deals. But it pays well," he added with a small, self-deprecating grin. Emma smiled. She wasn't sure why, but hearing him talk about his work in such an unassuming way made her feel more at ease. Most people she met who had money or power usually didn't speak so openly. "It's funny," she said after a beat. "You don't really seem like the type to be in charge of anything. I mean that in a good way," she added quickly, realizing how that sounded. Liam smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I get that a lot. I guess I've never been a big fan of the whole corporate persona. I'd rather just do the work and let the results speak for themselves." There was something about the way he spoke that made Emma feel like he was more than just a man with a fancy title. He didn't seem to care about impressing her, and that made her feel more comfortable. She was used to people judging her for her job as a waitress, for her dreams that seemed too far out of reach. But Liam didn't seem to care about any of that. She found herself talking to him more freely, sharing bits of her life she hadn't shared with anyone else. The conversation drifted to their lives outside of work. Emma told him about her passion for art, how she had always wanted to open her own studio, but it felt like an impossible dream. Liam listened intently, asking questions, showing genuine interest in her aspirations. She had never had someone listen to her this way before. It was refreshing, even though part of her wanted to pull back. She couldn't help but feel that there was something too good to be true about all of this. But then Liam said something that stopped her thoughts in their tracks. "You know," he began, "if you ever need help getting your studio off the ground, I could probably help with that." Emma blinked, not sure if she had heard him right. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice shaky. "I mean it," Liam replied, his tone steady. "I know people, and I have connections in the art world. I can help you get the resources you need. I think you've got something special, Emma." Emma stared at him, trying to process what he had just said. Was this really happening? Was he offering to help her, just like that? She had always dreamed of having someone believe in her, but she never expected it to come from a stranger, especially not someone like Liam. I don't know what to say," she whispered, feeling overwhelmed. Liam smiled softly, leaning back in his chair. "You don't have to say anything. But if you're serious about this dream, I'll help you make it happen. Just let me know." For the first time, Emma felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a mistake after all. Over the next few days, Emma found herself thinking more and more about Liam's offer. It felt surreal, like something out of a dream. She had never expected to meet someone like him, someone who seemed genuinely interested in her, not just her circumstances. And yet, here he was, offering her a chance to make her dreams come true. It wasn't just the opportunity that made her hesitate, it was the uncertainty. What did he really want from her? Was this just another transaction, like everything else in his life? Or was there something more to this? She tried to push these thoughts aside as she worked the next few shifts at the diner, but they lingered, distracting her. She had always prided herself on being independent, on not relying on anyone else. But this was different. Liam had extended a hand to her, and she wasn't sure whether she should take it. She spent hours thinking about it, weighing the pros and cons, until finally, she decided to do something she never thought she would do. She called him. "Hi, Liam. It's Emma," she said when he picked up. She could hear the surprise in his voice when he answered. "I've been thinking about your offer, and I think I want to take you up on it." Liam's voice was warm and encouraging. "I'm glad you called. Don't feel like you need to rush. Take your time. I'm here whenever you're ready." Emma paused for a moment, gathering her thoughts. "I'm ready, but I want to make sure we're clear about something," she said, her voice a little hesitant. "I don't want things to get complicated. I don't want you to think that I'm doing this for any reason other than because it's what I've always wanted." Liam's response was calm and reassuring. "Emma, I get it. You don't owe me anything. You're doing this for yourself, not for me. I just want to help you get where you want to go. No strings attached." Emma let out a sigh of relief. She had been afraid of what this might turn into, of what Liam might expect in return. But his words were genuine, and she believed him. "Okay," she said, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. "I'm in." They made plans to meet later that week to discuss the details. And as Emma hung up the phone, she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was a huge step, and she wasn't sure what to expect. But one thing was for sure. She was about to embark on a journey that could change her life forever. When the day finally came for their meeting, Emma was filled with anticipation. She wore the best outfit she could find, a simple, yet polished dress, and made her way to the cafe where they had agreed to meet. She arrived early, hoping to gather her thoughts before she saw him. She sat at a table, nervously tapping her fingers on the surface when she saw Liam walk in. His presence immediately filled the room, but his smile when he saw her was warm, like they had known each other for years. "Hey, Emma," Liam greeted, walking over to her. "How are you feeling about everything?" "Nervous, honestly," she replied, standing to greet him. "I've never done anything like this before." Liam nodded, understanding. "I get that, but you're not in this alone. I'm here to guide you through it, every step of the way." They sat down, and Liam began to explain the next steps. He outlined the resources he could connect her with: art galleries, funding opportunities, and mentorship programs. Emma listened carefully, taking notes, her mind racing with possibilities. She had dreamed of opening her own studio for years, but never thought it would actually happen. And now, it seemed like it might. With Liam's help, the dream was no longer out of reach. "I'll introduce you to a few people I know in the industry," Liam continued. "And I can help you with the logistics of getting your studio up and running. You just have to be willing to put in the work." Emma nodded, her heart pounding with excitement. "I'm ready," she said, more confident than she had been in a long time. "I've been waiting for an opportunity like this." Liam smiled, his eyes filled with pride. "I believe in you, Emma. You've got the talent. Now, let's make this happen." As they wrapped up their meeting, Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude toward Liam. He had given her a chance she never thought she would have. And as she left the cafe that day, she realized that this wasn't just about starting her career, it was about believing in herself again. She had taken a chance on Liam's offer, and in return, he had shown her that anything was possible. She knew it wasn't going to be easy, but for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she had a shot at making her dreams come true. In the weeks that followed, Emma threw herself into her work like never before. With Liam's help, she began to build her dream studio from the ground up. She spent hours researching, meeting with potential partners, and planning every detail. She had never felt so motivated. Each day, she saw her vision taking shape, piece by piece, and with every step forward, her confidence grew. But there was something else that was starting to change, something she hadn't expected. It wasn't just the business that was growing. Her feelings for Liam were growing too. At first, she tried to push those feelings aside. After all, their relationship had started with a business deal. He was helping her achieve her dream, but that didn't mean anything beyond that, right? He had always been so kind, so patient with her, but he was also careful not to cross any boundaries. He never pushed her for anything more than the promise of hard work, and that was something she respected. Still, there were moments, small moments, when his presence made her heart skip a beat. When he smiled at her across a table, when he gave her words of encouragement, or when their conversations drifted into territory beyond business. One afternoon, as they were discussing the final details of her studio space, Emma found herself looking at him a little longer than usual. Liam was leaning back in his chair, one arm resting on the table, casually listening to her talk about her plans. His eyes were focused on her, but there was a softness there, a warmth she hadn't noticed before. When she caught his gaze, her breath caught in her throat. It was like he wasn't just hearing her words. He was seeing her, really seeing her. "You're really good at this," Liam said, breaking the silence. "I can tell you've put so much thought into it. I'm impressed." "Thanks," Emma replied, trying to steady her pulse. "I've always wanted to make this happen. It's hard to believe it's actually coming true." Liam nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I know what you mean. Sometimes, the biggest challenge is just believing it's possible. But I know you're going to make this work, Emma. You've got something special." Her heart fluttered at his words. She had always felt like an outsider in the world of artists and dreamers, but Liam's belief in her made her feel like she finally belonged. But as much as she wanted to believe that it was just his way of being encouraging, she couldn't help but wonder if there was something more. Was there more to this relationship than just business? That night, after their meeting, Emma couldn't sleep. She lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation in her mind. Was she imagining things? Was Liam just being kind, or was there something deeper there? She wasn't sure, but what she did know was that every time she thought of him, her heart raced, and it wasn't just because of the studio. She liked him. She liked him a lot. But did he feel the same way? The next day, she decided to focus on the project and not let her feelings get in the way. She had too much at stake now. But as soon as she walked into her studio space that afternoon, she received a message from Liam. "I was thinking, would you like to join me for dinner tonight? I know you've been working hard, and I'd like to take you out, just to relax for a change. No talk about business, just a night to enjoy." Emma stared at the screen, her heart racing again. A dinner invitation. Was this just a casual dinner between friends, or was it something more? She hesitated for a moment before replying. "That sounds nice," she wrote back. "I'd like that." As the evening approached, Emma couldn't shake the butterflies in her stomach. She hadn't expected this. A dinner date? With Liam? She tried to push the anxiety aside, but it was hard to ignore the sense that something was changing. This was no longer just a business relationship. And as she prepared for the night, she found herself wondering what would happen next. When she arrived at the restaurant, she spotted Liam almost immediately. He was already seated at a table by the window, a glass of wine in hand. He looked up when he saw her, and his face broke into a smile that made her heart flutter. He stood to greet her, his eyes warm and inviting. "You look beautiful, Emma," Liam said, his voice low and sincere. "I'm really glad you came." Emma smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her. "Thank you, Liam. This place is amazing." As they sat down and began to enjoy their meal, the conversation flowed easily. They talked about everything and nothing. Childhood memories, favorite books, places they wanted to visit. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was just another woman enjoying a meal with a man who wasn't worried about business or expectations. It was refreshing, and she couldn't help but enjoy every moment. The evening passed by quickly, and as they walked out of the restaurant, Liam turned to her with a serious expression. "Emma," he began, "I want you to know that I'm here for you. I'm not just helping you with the studio because it's a business thing. I believe in you, and I believe in us." Emma's breath caught in her throat. "Us?" she whispered, her heart racing. Liam smiled softly, reaching for her hand. "Yes, us. I care about you, Emma, and I want to see where this goes." Emma stood there, speechless, as the world around them seemed to fade away. For the first time in her life, she realized that she wasn't just chasing a dream, she was living it. And Liam, the man who had helped her get this far, was the one who had unexpectedly stolen her heart. In the days that followed their dinner, Emma's world felt like it was shifting. Everything seemed to be falling into place. The studio was coming along beautifully, and every time she thought about the progress she was making, her heart filled with pride. But there was something else she couldn't ignore, her growing feelings for Liam. It was becoming harder to separate business from personal emotions, and she wasn't sure how to handle it. Liam had made it clear that he cared about her, but she still wasn't sure what that meant for their future. Was it just a passing attraction, or was there something real between them? She tried to push those thoughts aside as she focused on the studio. There was still so much to do, and every moment she spent working with Liam only made her realize how much more she was capable of. His belief in her gave her the strength to keep pushing forward. But the more time they spent together, the more she began to question whether her feelings for him were just the result of his kindness and generosity, or if there was something deeper there. One afternoon, as they were working together in her new studio space, Emma found herself watching Liam as he spoke. His words were always thoughtful, and he was so easy to talk to. He had a way of making her feel like she was the most important person in the room. She had never felt this way before, like she mattered so much to someone. It was strange, and yet it felt right. She realized then that she had stopped overthinking it. She liked Liam a lot, and she wanted to see where this could go. That evening, as they were wrapping up their work, Liam turned to her with a serious expression. "Emma, I've been thinking," he began, his voice soft yet intense. "I know we've been focused on the studio and everything, but I want you to know that I care about you, more than just as a business partner, and I don't want to hide it anymore." Emma felt her heart race at his words. She had been waiting for him to say something like this, but hearing it out loud made everything feel so real. She opened her mouth to say something, but words failed her. She wasn't sure how to respond. She had been so caught up in her own feelings, she hadn't realized how much Liam had been thinking about their relationship. Liam took a step closer, his eyes filled with sincerity. "I don't want to rush anything," he continued. "I just want you to know that I'm here for you. And I want to see where this goes, with no pressure. Just us, figuring it out together." Emma's heart swelled with emotion. She had never expected this, never thought someone like Liam could care for her in this way. She had always kept her distance, afraid of letting someone in. But now, standing there in front of him, she realized she didn't want to push him away. She wanted to take a chance on him, on them. "I care about you too, Liam," Emma whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "I didn't know if I was just imagining things, but now, I know. I want to see where this can go too." The smile that spread across Liam's face made her heart skip a beat. He reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "We'll take it one step at a time, okay?" he said softly. "No pressure, no expectations. Just us, figuring it out." As Emma looked into Liam's eyes, she felt something shift inside her. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. There was still a long road ahead. There were challenges to face, dreams to chase, and fears to overcome. But for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She wasn't alone. And with Liam by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. They stood there for a moment, the weight of their unspoken feelings hanging in the air, before Liam leaned in and kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, as if they were both testing the waters. But as the kiss deepened, Emma knew, without a doubt, that this was the beginning of something beautiful. When they finally pulled away, Liam's smile was all warmth and promise. "I'm glad you're here, Emma," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. Emma smiled back, her heart full. "I'm glad too." And in that moment, she knew that whatever happened, they would face it together. In the weeks that followed, everything seemed to be falling into place. The studio was coming together faster than Emma had ever imagined, thanks to Liam's unwavering support. She had never felt more confident in her abilities. With his help, she secured funding, partnered with local artists, and began curating her first exhibition. She was finally living the dream she had put on hold for so long. But despite all the success and progress, there was still a knot of uncertainty inside her, one that had nothing to do with the studio. It was Liam. He had always been there, right by her side, helping with every step, offering advice and encouragement. They had grown closer, their bond deepening as they spent more time together, both professionally and personally. But something was nagging at Emma. She hadn't expected things to move so quickly between them. Yes, she cared about him, more than she had ever expected. But the more time they spent together, the more she found herself wondering if it was enough. Was this just a fleeting moment of happiness, or was it something that could last? She found herself questioning their connection during moments when they were alone. Liam had told her he cared for her, that he wanted to take things slow, but sometimes it felt like she was the only one putting herself out there emotionally. He was so composed, always so careful with his words and actions. Emma, on the other hand, was someone who wore her heart on her sleeve, never afraid to speak what was on her mind. But Liam was always holding something back. One evening, after another successful meeting with investors for the studio, They walked out into the cool evening air. The city was buzzing with life, but Emma felt a quiet tension between them. They had both been silent for a while, lost in their own thoughts as they made their way down the sidewalk. When they reached the corner, Emma finally broke the silence. "Liam," she began, her voice quiet but steady. "I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest with me." She stopped walking, turning to face him. Her heart was racing, but she couldn't hold it in any longer. "What are we doing here? I mean, I know we've talked about the studio and everything, but what about us? Is this just about business? Or is there something more?" Liam stopped too, looking at her with a mixture of surprise and thoughtfulness. For a moment, he didn't say anything. Emma's breath caught in her chest as she waited for him to respond. She had already made herself vulnerable by asking the question, but now she felt exposed, as if she had pushed too far. Finally, Liam spoke, his voice low and careful. "I care about you, Emma, more than I think you realize. But I didn't want to rush things. I didn't want to make this about something it wasn't." He paused, taking a step closer to her. "I don't want to hurt you. I've been through a lot in the past, and I guess I've been afraid of getting too close, of letting myself feel something real." Emma felt a rush of emotions flood her chest. She had suspected it, but hearing him admit it made everything clearer. He was afraid. Afraid of opening up, afraid of what their relationship could mean. But Emma wasn't going to let fear control her anymore. "I get it," she said, her voice firm but kind. "I've been afraid too. But we're not just building a business here, Liam. We're building something between us. And I don't want to hold back anymore." Liam's eyes softened as he reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I don't want to hold back either," he whispered. "But I needed to hear that from you. I needed to know you felt the same way." He smiled, and for the first time in a long time, Emma saw the weight he had been carrying lift from his shoulders. As the streetlights flickered around them, Emma realized that, for the first time, she felt truly seen. She wasn't just someone he was helping, she was someone he cared about. And that meant everything to her. She smiled back at him, feeling a sense of peace settle in her heart. "So what now?" she asked, her voice full of hope. "Now," Liam replied, pulling her close, "we move forward. Together. No more holding back. We take this step by step, and we see where it goes." His arms wrapped around her, and in that moment, Emma knew that everything was about to change. The future they were building was no longer just about her dreams. It was about their dreams, together. As the weeks passed, Emma and Liam's relationship continued to grow stronger. The studio was thriving, and Emma felt like she was finally living the life she had always dreamed of. But there was something else she hadn't expected. The more time she spent with Liam, the more she realized that this wasn't just about business anymore. It was about them, about the connection they shared. And it was becoming harder to ignore the fact that, despite all the progress they had made, there was still something looming over them. It wasn't the business or the studio. It wasn't even the fears they had both worked so hard to overcome. It was Liam's past. She knew he had been through a lot. He had mentioned it before, in bits and pieces, but it wasn't until one evening, while they were enjoying a quiet dinner together at her apartment, that he finally opened up about it. They were sitting at the kitchen table, the soft glow of the candlelight casting shadows across their faces. Liam looked at her, his eyes distant for a moment before he spoke. "Emma, there's something I need to tell you," he began, his voice a little rough, as though the words were hard to find. "I've never really told anyone about my past, not in detail. But I think you deserve to know." He paused, his fingers tracing the rim of his wine glass. "I grew up in a world where nothing was ever easy. I've always had to fight for everything I've had. My family, they didn't exactly make it easy. For me, I was pushed to be something I never wanted to be. I made choices, some good, some bad. But when I lost everything a few years ago, it hit me harder than I ever imagined." His voice faltered slightly as he looked up at her. Emma reached across the table, gently taking his hand in hers. She could feel the weight of his words, and it made her heart ache for him. "You don't have to tell me everything," she said softly. "But I'm here, Liam. Whatever it is, you don't have to face it alone." She gave his hand a reassuring squeeze. He smiled at her, but it was a sad smile, full of years of unspoken pain. "I know," he said quietly. "That's the hardest part for me. Letting people in. I've always kept my distance, pushed people away, because I was afraid of being vulnerable. But with you, Emma, I don't want to hide anymore. I don't want to keep you at arm's length." His eyes searched hers, as if looking for confirmation. Emma's heart swelled with emotion as she looked back at him. "I know, Liam," she whispered. "I've seen the way you've held back, but I understand. I know what it's like to be afraid. But we're building something real here. And whatever your past holds, we'll face it together." She squeezed his hand again, this time with more conviction. For a long moment, neither of them said anything. They just sat there, holding hands, letting the silence speak for them. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was a quiet understanding, a bond that had formed between them over time. The weight of his past was still there, but Emma knew that together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Later that night, after Liam had left, Emma sat on her couch, reflecting on everything he had said. She couldn't help but admire his strength, even though it had been hard for him to admit the truth. He had lived through so much, and yet, here he was, trusting her with a piece of himself he had kept hidden for so long. It made her love him even more. She realized, in that moment, that the future was no longer uncertain. They had both come a long way, and now, they were building something together. Not just the studio, not just their careers, but a life. A life they could share. And Emma knew that whatever came next, she was ready for it. As she drifted off to sleep, her last thoughts were of Liam. She smiled softly, knowing that they had both taken a huge step forward. Their journey together had just begun, and she was ready to face it, hand in hand with him. As the months went by, Emma and Liam continued to build their lives together, not just their professional dreams, but something deeper, something far more meaningful. The studio was thriving, and Emma's confidence had grown beyond what she had ever imagined. She was no longer just the waitress with a dream. She was a successful businesswoman, an artist, and most importantly, she was loved. And she knew the same was true for Liam. The man who had once been afraid to open up, the man who had kept his distance for so long, had finally allowed himself to love again, to let someone in. And that someone was her. One evening, as they sat together in the studio, Liam turned to her, his eyes full of something she couldn't quite place. He had been quiet for a while, lost in thought. It wasn't like him to be so introspective, and it made her wonder what was on his mind. Finally, he spoke. "Emma," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything we've built together. When I first met you, I never imagined that I would find someone like you. Someone who makes me want to be better, someone who reminds me that there's more to life than just work and success." He paused, taking a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to say the words he had been holding back for so long. "You've changed my life, Emma. You've shown me what really matters, and I don't want to live another day without you." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had heard him talk about their journey together before, but hearing him say these words now, in this moment, felt different. It felt real. She looked at him, searching his face for any hint of doubt, but all she saw was love, unwavering and true. "Liam," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "I've always known that you were special, but I never knew how deeply you would become a part of my life. I never knew how much I could love someone until I met you." She reached for his hand, squeezing it gently, her heart full of all the things she had never said. "You're everything I've ever wanted, and more. And I can't imagine my life without you in it." Liam smiled, a smile that reached his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, Emma felt a sense of peace, of certainty, that everything was exactly as it should be. She didn't need to worry about the future anymore. They had come this far together, and now, they were ready to take the next step. Without saying another word, Liam stood up and walked to the back of the studio, where Emma had set up a small gallery of her recent work. He returned moments later, holding something in his hand, something small, but significant. He knelt down on one knee, his eyes never leaving hers. "Emma," he said softly, his voice full of sincerity, "I don't need anything more than this. Will you marry me?" The world seemed to stop in that moment. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she stared down at Liam, the man who had been by her side through every challenge, every triumph, and every moment of doubt. And in that moment, she realized that this was the future she had always dreamed of, one where love was the foundation and everything else was built upon it. With tears in her eyes, she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." And as Liam slipped the ring onto her finger, they knew that their journey together had only just begun. The wedding was small and intimate, held in the studio where they had shared so many of their dreams. Surrounded by friends and family, they exchanged vows, promising to support each other through whatever life had in store. And as they walked out of the studio hand in hand, Emma couldn't help but smile, knowing that this was just the beginning of a beautiful life together. The future was uncertain, but one thing was for sure. They had each other, and with that, they could face anything. And for the first time, Emma truly believed that anything was possible.